We're in one.
Hey there, everyone. I'm meteorologist Jennifer Lambers.
And meteorologist Matt Barentine. We've been, of course, tracking the storm as it works its way north. Of course, we are talking about Helene, and it's a powerful hurricane, but it has been struggling today.
It has been. There's been some talk about the eye of this center, a little bit of that wobble too. However, once the system does approach closer towards the Big Bend region of Florida, still expecting some of those major impacts to be brought towards those portions of Florida. But even then, still moving into Georgia, the Carolinas, portions of Tennessee. They'll be seeing this even heading into tomorrow.
Yeah, the Weather Service up in, I think it's Greenville, South Carolina, is saying that this could be a 4,000-year flooding event. And we're talking way inland there. So it isn't just where the storm makes landfall. It's going to be up into North Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, where the mountains are. It's going to catch a lot of that rain from the storm, and they're anticipating 8 to 10 inches of rain within a few hours, literally, of the storm. That's going to, has to go somewhere, and it's going to cause quite a few problems.
So I remember you a few days ago on the morning show talking about that this was going to be one of the main concerns. Is not just don't watch it until landfall and then just expect it just to move inland and be okay. That this will still be something that we're hearing about for the days to come, and that we will start to see a lot of those heavy impacts even for portions further inland across the southeast.
It's been fascinating kind of watching it grow and build today, and kind of it's been struggling with some dry air. We talked about there's been a kind of a false eye in it, but some dry air kind of got wrapped around. So I've been keeping an eye on that, and it hasn't been really strengthening so far today. I am noticing, though, in the last little bit on the satellite, it does seem to be getting stacked together a little bit better, and we could be seeing an eye developing here and before landfall. So that would be problematic, but we'll obviously be. Everybody in that region just needs to be prepared to deal with a major hurricane one way or the other. And you can hope for the best, but you got to prepare for the worst.
That's exactly right. And so as Matt mentioned, it's getting its act together just a little bit. And so that is reflective in the National Hurricane Center's brand new update. Again, that's coming out at 1 p.m. And those sustained winds, now even stronger, at 110 miles per hour.
And the pressure has dropped down to 959 millibars. The hurricane hunters have been oh boy, they've been doing a job. They've been in there all last couple of days constantly. There's not been a time really where the hurricane hunters haven't been flying into the storm. As soon as one gets out, another one is in there. So they're basically passing a baton, getting that information for us, and it's so critical to get that data.
And I will say it also picked up in speed. It's now moving north-northeast at 16 miles per hour. So at that 7 a.m. advisory update, it was 12 miles. At that 10 a.m., it was 14. And now at this 1 p.m., it's 16. So it's moving even faster at this time. Still just located 195 miles southwest of Tampa. Now really just directly to the west of about Fort Myers, Naples area.
Yeah, a lot of people probably know this, but I'm from Tallahassee, so I have family and friends that are going to be staying there through the storm. One thing I did tell them that's one good thing about this, it will be moving quickly. So you're just not going to have to deal with it very long, at least with the worst of the weather before it moves in and moves out. But obviously this is going to be probably the strongest storm that Tallahassee has ever recorded. I mean, I grew up there. I don't remember, and I know there wasn't a storm nearly the strong ever went through there.
And only expected to get stronger. So the National Hurricane Center still has that track path, having it become that Category 3 hurricane, that major storm later on this afternoon and this evening. Sustained winds 120 miles per hour. Those could go up as we get closer. Just really something to monitor. I'll even look in closer towards that path of where it's heading directly towards the Big Bend region, and no really shift changes at this last update, Matt.
Yeah, if you don't mind, zoom in there on top of Tallahassee. I mean, that is, like I said, would be an absolute devastating blow to the city because it's basically going right through town. And interestingly enough, too, the Florida's EOC, the main Emergency Operations Center, is basically about where the S is in Tallahassee. So they've had to actually, even out of the Emergency Operations Center has had to evacuate. I think they've left a skeleton staff behind, but they've had to actually evacuate the Florida Emergency Operations Center because, obviously this is going to go basically almost through town. Now, it is if it stays on that middle path, it would be a little east of town. That would be somewhat helpful, but they would still be obviously seeing massive issues across town.
And storm surge, still
Yeah.
a concern. We have the eye wall that's going to have more of those Category 3 force winds as it moves further inland. Southern Georgia will still see some of these impacts even afterwards. So Valdosta, Thomasville seeing some of those heavy impacts. And you're going to have the down trees. That's going to lead to more of those power outages. Afterwards, it moves further inland. You're going to have flash flooding concerns. And so just overall threats are extreme for this portion of the Big Bend region, and that's really reflective in the tropical alerts at this time. What I've been mentioning is that almost the entire state of Florida is under some sort of tropical alert. There's one sliver that's not, and that's going to be the portion of the Foxton viewing area that we cover into Florida, which is Escambia, Santa Rosa, and Okaloosa counties. However, look at Georgia, look at South Carolina. All of those states lit up in that red coloration, either the tropical storm warnings or those hurricane warnings, where they will be feeling the impacts from Helene, either in that hurricane force or those tropical storm force.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. All of Georgia and all of South Carolina are under warnings. That is something else. This is a fast-moving, very large storm. Once again, very powerful. And since it is fast-moving and it is strong, that fast movement does allow those strong hurricane force winds to move far inland. That happened during Michael. Many areas well inland up in Georgia, Columbus, Georgia, those areas saw a lot of damage, a lot of downed trees because of the fast moving storm. Same deal here. Fast moving storm can take those strong hurricane force winds and keep them going way inland.
I was to say, bring it back to us here locally, for anyone in the Mobile area, if you remember Zeta. Think of Zeta, how it made landfall. However, the biggest impacts that we saw move through Clark County, Washington County. It was fast moving, and they saw all of that wind, all of that rain, and more of the damage in that portion of southern Alabama.
Yeah, I was up in Citronelle for that.
Yeah.
There was trees down everywhere. It was something else.
And so it's important not to only focus on the coastal areas. Even those people that are located further inland still going to be feeling some of those heavy impacts from Hurricane Helene as it does make landfall. A reminder, I've gotten some questions here on the Facebook Live. Here locally in the Foxton viewing area, are impacts minimal from this system? Rip current risks are our main concern. It's gray, it's gloomy out there. We've been getting some mist and some drizzle. We'll get some breezy winds later on today. Wind gusts 30, maybe 40 miles per hour. Very isolated if we see some of those. But it's on the west side of the system. We're not getting much here. It's mainly our friends, our neighbors further towards the east that are going to be feeling more of those impacts.
Yeah, so we're minimal at best here. Once again, rip currents. So hopefully folks staying out of the water next couple of days. Tomorrow, I'm more concerned about tomorrow because tomorrow's going to be a pretty day.
Yes.
And folks you go to the beach, but you don't want to get in the water yet because it'll still be pretty churned up.
It'll still be rough, so pay attention to the lifeguards where they are. Pay attention to those beach flags, double red flags. That means that the Gulf waters are closed. It is illegal to swim because you not only put yourself at risk, but you put others at risk too if they're having to help you out.
Correct.
And so here's the wind gust forecast.
Yeah, this is it's going to be just a terrible blow. And keep in mind when we run this that this isn't exact. It won't be exact landfall. And what you can do with the numbers that you see is just kind of say if it's going to be a little farther to the west, this is what those numbers would be. And you got to keep in mind too the shape of this coastline. We call it the Big Bend region of Florida because it bends around. It's like a catcher's mitt. There's nowhere for water to go. Storm surge. That's why we're anticipating such a large storm surge out of this because it just has nowhere to go, and it's going to flood all along what we call the nature coast. Now, thankfully, there's not a lot of homes along this coastline, and a lot of the ones that are pretty well built up, high off the ground and that sort of thing. But not everywhere. There are some areas like around Panacea and some other areas where homes will be lost and flooded out here.
And so this is going to start off for this evening. So this is going to be Thursday, 6 o'clock heading into tonight. And we start to see that wind field just getting closer. And so we go from more of those tropical storm force winds, even reaching the east coast of Florida. So the Atlantic side already feeling St. Augustine, Crescent City. I mean, you can see those wind gusts possibly getting into the 50 mile per hour range and only getting higher as Helene continues to push closer. That's why the entire state of Florida, besides those 3 local counties to us here in Foxton, are included in those tropical storm storm warnings where they will see more of those tropical storm force winds. And then later on tonight by 9-10 o'clock, it's getting even more gusty, and that's when we start to see more those hurricane force winds pushing inland.
Yeah, you can see that would be Keaton Beach is where this model is showing the landfall. Once again, don't get too focused on that. It could be a little off to the east of that, or it could be a little bit off to the west of that. The impacts will essentially be the same. There's going to be massive flooding here. The winds are going to do a lot of damage. The real key here, though, for obviously the most people in this region live in Tallahassee. So if it can stay east of Tallahassee, that's better off for the vast majority of people that live in this region. If it stays more on the track of what this is showing, but if it comes in more of around Apalachicola, then we've got more issues in Tallahassee itself.
And if you look at Perry right there, that 115 mile per hour wind gust, that is showing Category 3 force winds, but also it's gusts. It's not going to be those sustained winds. So it's mainly those sustained winds, that constant wind speed that has to get to that Category 3. But look at Valdosta, Madison, Thomasville, showing over 70 mile per hour wind gusts. Some of those Cat 1, some of those Cat 2. As they get closer towards the eye wall, still holding together as a hurricane, moving further inland despite already making landfall at that point.
Yeah, I really wonder if Valdosta's ever had a wind gust that high. I mean, this is going to be an incredible event for this region. One of those deals, everybody around here, we talk about, before and after Frederick, before and after Katrina, before and after Ivan. And this is going to be the same thing for this region. There'll be before and after Helene, because this is going to have that kind of impact where it's everything's going to be different afterwards.
Yeah, and so this is showing midnight Friday, so heading into this evening. And then actually that's as far as it goes, but it'll only continue to push further into southern Georgia, and those tropical storm force winds even holding together by the time it gets into central Georgia too.
Yeah, and this is what I've been really talking about the last few days. This is something a lot of people just do not consider, don't think about as much, is the inland flooding risk. And with this one, it just screamed the potential here when I was looking at it from several days of being a major event. And the main reason is because it's going to be moving fast. It's going to be picking up so much moisture here from the Gulf. When you pick up all that, we talk about the rapid intensification, how it's picking up these very warm waters of the Gulf. It's not just about the intensification of it. It's also growing larger, and it's also just sucking up all that moisture from the Gulf, that very warm water. And then it's got to go somewhere. When you take it, basically plow it right into mountains, North Georgia, that water's going to flow down. It's going to rain hard, and it's going to flow down those mountains, down into all the streams, and all those little streams will build up into rivers, and all those streams and rivers will keep washing on down. It's just going to be an incredible mess. They're going to get more rain. I think I mentioned this earlier. The folks up in the Greenville office said this is a 1 in 4,000 year event. I mean, so that just tells you they've never seen this before up there, and they're going to get a terrible flooding event. And this is flash flooding. Flash flooding is the type of flooding that kills people, particularly people who are driving around. That can be deadly.
And I know that Asheville was also mentioned in that flooding concern too. I've been there before. A lot of pretty creeks, streams, rivers in that area, along with some of the mountains. And so if you know anyone that just lives in that area where you start to see some of that darker red coloration, northern Georgia, on the western side there of North Carolina, South Carolina, into southeastern Tennessee, just check in with them. Make sure that they're paying attention to the forecast. Limit their time on the roadways, just because that flash flooding concern, that really will be a big thing that we're focusing on after Helene makes landfall, because we're going to be seeing a lot of reports and stories coming out of there of just this detrimental rainfall that will be pushing in, and all of it, as you mentioned, needing to find a place to go. And so that'll be a really big talking point over the next few days. Yeah,
mountains squeeze more rain out of a system, and obviously the Appalachians are there, and it's going to squeeze all that rain out, and it's going to do it over a very short period of time. When we're talking hours, and to build up that kind of rain amounts, and it just has to go somewhere, so it'll end up causing major issues.
And so here is a look at satellite radar just across the southeast right now, already starting to see some of that rain that's been pushing into Panama City, Tallahassee for quite a while. And with this is showing about 4 hour loop last 4 hours. And if we went back further, it would probably show even more of that rain. And what that brings me back to is some of the systems that we've had pushed through here. You're dealing with saturated soil already. And then you're going to be adding the Category 3 hurricane force winds on top of this. So that just reminds you that down trees, power lines, power outages for days, with already seeing some of that rain beginning to push in.
Yeah, if you never, folks, have you ever been to Tallahassee before?
I stayed there one night, just passing through, going to Orlando. But
Okay, yeah, so Tallahassee, we're proud of our trees here in and around Mobile. Tallahassee has more trees. Tallahassee they are extremely proud of their trees in Tallahassee. They are everywhere. And you can't mean the Walmart. You can't even see. It's like the one in Daphne, how you can't really see the Walmart.
Yeah, it's hidden back there.
Every Walmart and Target, every big box center like that in Tallahassee is covered by trees, so you can't see it from the road. So Tallahassee is very proud of its trees, and a lot of them are going to go down, and they're going to be without power for a while. Now, thankfully, it's not like it was 20, 30 years ago. There's the linemen are going over there in droves. I've already seen that. I think a bunch of them are right now staged over in Pensacola. Also, a bunch are staged down in Ocala, so they'll be able to converge on the area pretty quickly. But even still, Tallahassee is going to be a mess. It's going to be like a symphony of chainsaws for probably several weeks there. We've been through that, but I'm telling you, Tallahassee has a lot more trees really than most cities ever do. So it's going to be pretty bad.
So really something that came out. Now you mentioned the trees, I do remember that. And I've been near it. I'm going to pronounce the name wrong. Wakulla Springs?
Wakulla.
Yeah, Wakulla Springs. I've been there, and I remember just how many trees there was. I remember how many gators there were, too. That was one thing that stuck out to me. So let me your
That's
time in
where
the
my
water.
sister lives, right off of Wakulla Springs.
Okay, so your sister, your mom, I hope that family, friends are going to be okay once we continue to track this system moving further inland, but already seeing that saturated soil. I did want to talk about our forecast here locally, just a little bit, focusing again on what we're experiencing in the Fox-10 viewing area. We're on the west side of the system. Helene is not making landfall in Mobile, Baldwin counties. I still keep getting questions about that. It is not going to be making landfall near us. We're on the west side of the system, so our impact's minimal at best.
Right, and you can just see a little bit of rain over there around 30A, Panama City area.
Yep.
That, and a little bit working its way into Okaloosa County. And we talked about this for a couple of days that, we'll get some rain here in the Panhandle counties, but it probably not going to spread much beyond that.
And I was looking too, before we came on, already seeing some of those tornado warnings firing off. Not in our area. There were some of them near Panama City. It seems that they just have those flash flood warnings extending up closer towards Dothan at this time. Yeah. And some of those tornado warnings now firing off in Georgia. Yeah,
they're going to see tornado warnings in South Carolina and Georgia. Usually when you have a landfalling tropical system, you're going to get some tornado warnings, and they're generally going to be on the east side of the circulation, and it can be pretty far off to the east, but you generally don't get very many on the west side of the circulation, which is where we are. And since we're not really expecting very many storms, and they're not reaching very far into our viewing area, we're really not expecting much of that.
Just think back to Francine just about a month ago when we were on the east side of the system, and so one of our main threats was going to be some of those tornado warnings. I believe the only ones that we saw fire off were far east, Florida, Panhandle, Big Bend region, none closer towards the Mobile area, but looking in closer of the Georgia area near Jacksonville, Douglas, Alma, just starting to see some of those tornado warnings. Yeah,
because that's where those outer bands that are far to the east of the storm tend to get rotation going, because they're trying to catch up with the storm, and they'll spin very quickly. They'll move very quickly, and that quick movement by itself will create the vortice that they need to spin up with the tornadoes.
So that's a look closer towards, again, Panama City, extending up towards Dothan, Enterprise, even Auburn, getting some of those showers. Here's a look at the Futurecast. And I had mentioned earlier with those tropical alerts that Santa Rosa, Okaloosa, and Escambia counties in Florida were left outside of it. But I want you to look at just the line between Conecuh County and Escambia County in Alabama. Okaloosa County, you're kind of the exception here, still going to be seeing some of those showers. But all of that just barely missing us, just moving right along those county lines, heading further on into this evening.
And the reason why, folks, that it's not going to push farther west is because we have a trough digging down, and that trough is pushing it off to the east. So it's not going to allow it to come our way.
Here you go. We actually just got a brand new update. Thank you to our Nicholas Herboso, our Fox 10 News meteorologist Nicholas Herboso. He's in the comments here.
We got an intermediate update?
Yeah, we got an intermediate update. Helene is now a Category 3 hurricane.
So they'll do this when the hurricane hunters find something. That's what's happened here. The hurricane hunters found a stronger wind in there, so they've cranked it up to Category 3 strength.
And so those sustained winds are now at 120 miles per hour. The pressure is still the same. The movement is still the same, north-northeast at 16 miles per hour. But now those winds even stronger. They went up by 10 miles per hour just between 25 minutes. So that last advisory, 1 p.m., 25 minutes later, the winds went up 10 miles per hour more of those sustained constant wind speed.
Yeah, so like I said, the hurricane hunters are flying around in that storm constantly, and they are dropping what we call drop sondes, which are packages of instruments, and so they are just searching and searching and searching for the lowest pressure in there, and they're also searching for the highest winds in there, and they're creating, giving data to the modeling and helping to know exactly what's going to happen once this thing comes on in.
And so just something that you don't want to see at this time, especially because the sustained winds needed to be a Cat 3. Just a reminder of how the Saffir-Simpson scale works. It's 111. And so we are above that. So this is going to be middle of the road for that Cat 3 strength, much stronger at this time. I'm not for sure if they would have updated that track with it, still keeping it as that continued Category 3 strength later on for this evening. Correct,
yeah. So they're keeping it the same for the as it moves on in. But once again, whether it's 120 miles an hour, 130, 110, it's not really going to make a whole lot of difference to that region. It is going to be kind of the same blow one way or the other. And once again, that area where it goes in, you can see how the coastline is shaped. I don't know if you have the whatchamacallit, the storm surge maps, but but they expect inundation there miles inland because of anywhere from 10, 15, maybe even 20 feet of storm surge. I think the highest number the Hurricane Center is putting out right now is 15 to 20 feet right there in that very northern tip there, northeastern tip of the Gulf of Mexico, right there along the nature coast. So it is going to be a rough ride for folks over that way. And once again, it's going to be, it's going to be a devastating blow to that area, and it's going to be a long time to recover. I see Jennifer's pulling in some of the, we had it looking at a little bit earlier with Nicholas, and it's pretty intense what they are expecting. This is going to be very similar to what happened with Katrina, it looks like, with the heights of the water possible. So last year at Dahlia, I think the highest mark was Cedar Key right at 9 feet. So that kind of gives you an idea that, this is going to go beyond that, almost certainly. So that whole area, I mean, it is so vulnerable to storm surge, and that is going to be absolutely devastating. And so this, again, is going to be that storm surge that Matt was just talking about. It's still showing Panama City 1 to 3 feet. We get closer towards Port St. Joe, Apalachicola, that's at 6 to 10 foot range. And then right where the center of the system is expected to move further inland, that 15 to 20 foot. And even down towards Tampa for that 5 to 8 foot range. And so that is why here locally we're not seeing any of those storm surge concerns. We do have a coastal flood advisory just due to some of the wave heights that we're going to be experiencing here. But other than that, that storm surge concern is going to really be on the east side of the system. And so for anyone that did just miss it, again, Hurricane Helene got that new advisory update at 1 p.m. It was still that 110 mile per hour wind speed. And then a hurricane hunter went and investigated it 25 minutes later, upgrading it to that major Category 3 hurricane with those sustained winds at 120 miles per hour. Helene is now our second major storm so far for the season. Yeah, and once again, Tallahassee has never seen a direct impact from a major hurricane, at least in recorded history, so this is going to be an altering situation for that area. We know we've been through this before in our area, so we know how it goes, but obviously this is going to be a long day, long night for that region. Meanwhile, for us, things are actually going to be pretty nice. I might want to put up the 7-day. We're going to be looking at nice weather for tomorrow and then going on into the upcoming weekend. So sometimes you feel a little guilty when something like this happens, just down the road essentially, and Meanwhile, we're going to be doing really good as we head into the upcoming weekend.
Yeah, and so here again locally in the Foxton viewing area, Mobile counties, the Florida Panhandle, all the way to Destin, our inland spots, our Mississippi counties. It's gray, it's gloomy out there today. We're still seeing some peaks of sunshine, some misty conditions. Okaloosa County looking at really that 30% chance of showers there. We have football games heading into this evening. They're looking fine. It's just going to be windy. We do have that wind advisory in effect. Wind gusts 20 to 30 miles per hour. We have that, the wind advisory says it could get up to around 40, very isolated if we see that. That would be limited towards the coastline on the Florida Panhandle. But then heading into tomorrow, it looks great. We do have that storm tracker alert in place for today and tomorrow because of that rip current risk, but Friday night plans looking great. Weekend plans looking fantastic. We'll start to see more of that sunshine, mid to upper 80s, some pleasant mornings, and then we'll stay dry and sunny through midweek next week.
And Alabama and Auburn have home games this weekend.
Yes.
So folks are asking me about the forecast for both Tuscaloosa and for Auburn. It's going to be nice. It's going to be actually really great weather for football games. Not as hot as it could be, and certainly less humid than almost a fall-like feel, particularly up in Tuscaloosa. They probably feel like kind of like a fall day.
Yeah.
A little warm, but still feeling fallish. But all in all, it's going to be really great weather for the football games this weekend. So we'll be doing fine. Be thinking about folks recovering over there to the east. Of course, we'll be continuing to track this here all through the day here on Fox 10. You can find us all over the place on our socials, and of course on Fox 10, 3, 4, and 5 o'clock today we'll be there, and of course 9 o'clock this evening as well.
Exactly. I'm thinking of your family and your friends too, Matt, over in
Yeah.
Tallahassee. Again, his family all from that portion of the Gulf Coast.
Yep.
And so we will keep everyone updated. We will see you guys again on Fox 10 live later on 3 p.m. with that new advisory update from the National Hurricane Center, unless they release another early one at 4 p.m. Y'all have a good day. We will keep you updated.